I'm Nate Eaton, and today here in our studio we have the Goody family from the Pocatello area who has been living quite a nightmare, I guess you could say, over the past few years. It all began back in 2020 when Jared Goody, here to my left, started feeling sick. And it turned into quite an ordeal with Jared's ex-wife, Courtney Goody, who has been charged, was originally charged with felony aggravated assault, and that charge has now been reduced to some misdemeanors. But this family was poisoned, and they are here today to share their story, I guess for a few reasons. But Jared, why are you here? Why did you guys decide to speak out?
We're here to protect the lives of 3 innocent children. This is a murderous person, an evil person who tried to take my life, my mother's life, 2 of my sister's lives, a couple of my closest friends. We're here to protect my kids.
So this is Jared Goody. He was married to Courtney for about 10 years. And to Jared's left, we have Amber Hanson, Jared's sister. And then to my right, we have Jared's mom and dad, Shelly Goody and Jared Goody. I'm sorry, Shelly Goody and Brian Goody. And your sister, Hannah, couldn't be here today, but she was also a victim, correct?
Correct.
And am I missing anybody else?
Lance Larson and Cole Flynn.
They're 2 of your friends?
Yes.
Okay, and they were also poisoned?
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to start from the beginning, I guess we could say, or at least the beginning of this situation. Let's go back to 2020, right in the middle. If you can remember, it was COVID time. So a lot of people were getting COVID, lockdowns were underway, people really didn't know what was happening with the world. How did you first realize that something wasn't right with you?
Yeah, so just a normal day at work. Pandemic was going, we had a couple of people at work who had COVID at this point. I started to feel sick. I felt like nausea, dizzy, just generally not feeling well. And I got COVID, so I went in and so I think I need to go home. Too sick to be here. Went home and assumed that I had COVID and prepared to hunker down for the next few weeks of symptoms, and that was the beginning of 8 months of hell for me.
So what month was this?
That was June 10th of 2020 that I went home from work.
But the COVID test came back negative.
Correct.
And what were the symptoms? What were you feeling?
So at that point, dizzy, some brain fog, stomach issues like nausea, diarrhea, body aches, chills. I think that was probably about what I was feeling at that point.
But it didn't go away after a week or 2?
No, it did not.
So at what point, Brian and Shelly and Amber, did you all start to get sick?
Sorry, I started to feel sick after the 4th of July celebration that we had as a family together. Yeah.
So about a month later,
Yeah.
you get sick in June, you guys have the 4th of July, and what were your symptoms?
Same type of thing, body aches, the sweats, you sweat really bad, and then, cold chills, and very similar, all the same as Jared's.
And you recall too, wasn't it right after the 4th or on the 4th where you also were sick?
Yeah, after the 4th of July, I had brain fog. I think that's probably one of the biggest ones for me. I just didn't feel completely right. I was dizzy. I had tingling in my hands and in my arms, body aches, things like that. I know this because I went back and looked and on my Google search history, and on July 6th, I Googled a range of symptoms that I was feeling. And so Yeah, I would peg about around that time that I knew something was off.
And once you Googled those symptoms, what was the result? What came back?
I really thought that it was my thyroid.
Okay.
I thought maybe something was going on with my hormones or something. I felt kind of moody. I didn't really know what was going on, but also there was a lot of stress during that time. We were all really, really scared for Jared. We were really concerned. He was bedridden. It was crazy. He was up and he was down. Like it was kind of roller coastery. He seemed to get okay, but then all at once he would get bad again, and that was really, really hard because we thought we thought that he was kind of out of the worst part, and then roller coaster, because then he'd be down the next day, and it was really confusing seeing him in and out of the hospital. So yeah, I thought that it was stress. I thought, okay, well, there's a lot going on. That's just got to be what it is.
Now, Brian, you never got sick, right? But you're observing all of this. So what are you thinking?
We were really confused because the world's telling us that, here's COVID. And every time we would go to any medical facility at all, it was, well, this has got to be COVID. It's got to be a COVID. And Jared, he went to the emergency room several times, went to the doctor several times, went to University of Utah, and every time it was, I think you had 8 different COVID tests, and every one of them came back negative. And so probably late July, I started to get a little bit suspicious of, there's something just not right. And that's when we started to ask questions about maybe medications are being mixed up, or there's a possibility of maybe even something in the water or something like that. But I knew at that time that it wasn't COVID, and there was something else going on.
There had to be something more.
There had to be.
What was the state of your marriage at the time? I mean, were you and your former spouse fighting? Was it?
No.
Were you getting along?
Yeah, we were getting along. In my mind, she was trying to help save my life.
Take care of you.
She was, at that point I had lost my ability to drive, so she was driving me to these doctor's appointments. Oftentimes she was making the appointments for the doctors and taking notes there, just for different reasons, I guess, than what it seemed.
And you have 3 kids.
3 kids, yeah.
And your only source of food really is the food she was preparing you.
Yes.
Unless your mom might bring something over.
Right.
Okay, so end of July, Brian, you start to think something's not right here, but everything seems fine with the marriage, with the situation.
And I would like to add too that my symptoms have worsened a great deal in that month. So at this point, I'm feeling brain fog. I have pretty much a constant migraine. My hair starts falling out. I have thick hair, hair starts falling out. I could see my scalp. Fingernails and toenails got yellow and brittle, like breaking off. Skin lesions all over my body just pop up, and extremely sore and excreting something out of my skin. I went through one period where I hadn't been outside in weeks, and all of a sudden my skin started peeling like I had a terrible sunburn. I had excruciating heartburn, stomach pain, diarrhea, bloody stools, leg pain. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Tremors, lots and lots of symptoms. So
Oh my gosh.
it had worsened significantly by this point.
And did you ever taste anything weird? I mean, I think that a lot of people would think, oh, if I'm getting poisoned, I'm going to eat the food and it's going to taste gross, or I'm going to drink something and I'm going to feel something in my mouth. Anything like that for any of you?
Not that I can recall. However, I do have a voice recording where Courtney talks about me in a incoherent state, refusing some type of green Gatorade because I was insistent that she had poisoned it.
Yeah, we'll get to the recordings in a minute. But you didn't taste, as far as you can recall, everything tasted fine.
Everything tasted fine.
Same with you, Amber? Shelley? So and I'm sure Hannah would say the same thing because you might recall it. So end of July, Brian, you start to get a little suspicious. Something's going on here. At what point do you take the leap that, okay, my family's being poisoned?
You know, we started probably the first part of September. Shelley got extremely sick, like deathly sick. And we thought she'd had a stroke. And at that point, it's like, okay, we got to figure this out. And so probably mid-September is when we started to think that there was something toxic that was causing it. And but we really didn't. We kept trying to work through things. You know, we worked through Halloween and got through Halloween, and then got to Thanksgiving, and shortly after that, a week later, my brother was really sick and died of COVID at that time. So we were dealing with that at the same time, but probably late December is when we said, this is what's happening. We've got to do something about it.
Wow, so 6 months.
It was Christmas break, yeah.
Yeah, Shelley, tell me about the symptoms you were having and why. You said before we were rolling that you just wanted to protect your family. You were kind of more worried about them than your health.
Yeah, I also believed it was from stress, my sickness. But I had brain fog really bad. After that one instance in September, I couldn't lift my arms and legs. I had to have assistance to get to the doctor. My words were dyslexic. I couldn't see clearly and closely, and it was really scary, really scary. I really thought I had a stroke or something, and it just continued to get worse. Like my legs started to ache, and I remember being really irritated with the doctors because they kept diagnosing me with everything that Jared was diagnosed with, and like reflux and a lot of the same medications that Jared had, and I just thought that they were just trying to be passive to me. You know, you guys have the same thing or something like that, and it was very hard.
At this point, it was kind of frustrating too because, I think the doctors were doing everything that they could, but they were frustrated too because Jared went through countless blood tests. My mom went through countless blood tests and, so many different things, and everything came back looking good on paper. In fact, I think I remember one of the doctors saying, you're good on paper, but obviously you're sick. And so, that part was really discouraging because no one could just put a finger on it exactly. And he'd start medication and things wouldn't get better. And so that was hard, is just being completely open-ended and not being able to figure out what it was.
So you go through 6 months of this and you're getting the worst, still in bed, still chill, all horrible things happening. Who decides to do what next?
I remember it very clearly. It was our Christmas break that we went to our cabin in Island Park, and we were all there, and Courtney and Jared and their kids came up, and something was just very, very wrong that break. And it was just, I remember being super frustrated. There was times when Courtney was just, it was like I was battling her. She wanted, the kids to not get along. But after they had left, I pulled my girls together. It was like 1:00 in the morning. I was like, I don't know what is wrong, but something is wrong. We have got to figure this out.
I think at that point, we were all just like, something is going on. What is happening? And I think we kind of just like took each other's experiences and really just kind of slowly started to put together pieces and just kind of formulated this crazy idea that what if she's intentionally making him sick? What if she's doing this? And at that time, you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't even believe that my brain went there. But Jared was so sick. It was torture. My mom was so sick. It was torture. We were desperate. We I don't know if that's even the right word, but we were just trying to find something to help, to some direction. And so I think at that point we just, well, maybe it is the medications. Maybe she's getting them mixed up. I don't know, because he can't take his own medications. He can't even get out of bed. And so, I think they had a conversation with him that was just something along the lines of, just, you need to pay attention to your medications, take them yourself, take them out of the bottle yourself, and make sure you're getting the right dosages and everything is good there.
So you were trying to give her the benefit of the doubt that maybe it was a mistake, things were getting mixed up.
Yeah.
We loved her. She was part of our family. But there was three specific things that happened during that time period that really got us suspicious. The first thing was the girls were preparing for Thanksgiving dinner, and Jared and Courtney were going out to her parents, but she was there helping prepare, and she wasn't happy with what her family had asked her to bring, and so she had made a suggestion there that she was going to put something in their stuffing, and something that would make them all sick. Yeah.
And I'd like to point out that they didn't ask her to bring food. They asked her to bring napkins.
And then the second thing was when my brother passed away, he passed away in St. George, but the funeral was in Rigby, and Courtney rode home with our other daughter, Michaela, and during that ride home, she had had a conversation with her cousin who had passed away, and had comments, or there was comments about her wanting to poison Jared during their first separation, and Chance had told her how to do that. And then the third thing that happened was when we were up at the cabin, we were planning on going on a snowmobile ride the next day, and this was in the evening where these guys all got together. She made the comment the next morning that Jared wasn't going to get up very early because she gave him something to make him sleep.
Something a little extra.
Yeah, something a little extra
to help him sleep.
So there's these little statements that she's making throughout this time. At what point do you all decide to go to the police? Was that before or after you did your own poison tests?
I've got a friend that I started to make had a conversation with and told him what was going on, and he told us that we probably should start, looking at putting a case together and taking it to the police. And I remember in mid-January, or shortly after the first of the year, I called our family doctor, and I just asked him, I said, do you think she could be poisoning him? And he said, why would you think that? He said, it wasn't that he was questioning us, it was just that he hadn't thought of that either. It's like, it's not something that people normally do. So he was questioning, he's like, we need to look into this. We need to figure out how to test for this and put some tests together. So early January is when we got really serious about figuring out what was, what the toxin was that was going in the system and how it was getting there.
And Jared, tell me, when your parents came to you or your siblings and said, we think that your wife might be intentionally doing this, what went through your mind? Did you think that was a possibility, or did you kind of resist that at first?
I resisted it. I mean, who wants that to be the reality? And Courtney was the mother of my children, and I did have a lot of love for her, and I didn't want to believe it, no.
A lot of people might say, well, if you go to the doctor, they should just be able to test for these things, but a lot of times you have to know what you're testing for, and they're not testing for hard metals or every type of poison that's out there unless they know to test for them. So you all decided to do your own test kit, right, through a private company, and it was around $6,000 that you spent of your own money per person. And how many people did you test?
Eventually, I think it was close to at least 10 people that we ended up testing.
Wow.
We maybe more. Maybe after the first 5 or 8 tests, they started giving us a better deal because they knew what we were
getting them
testing
in bulk,
for.
just what you want to buy. So, but it started with you, Jared.
Yeah.
So what did the test involve?
Like as far as
Like, do you saliva? Do you send a
Okay.
piece of hair? How does that work?
yeah, it was a hair sample test.
So you send away this hair sample. Do you remember which month? Around February?
Yeah.
January, beginning of 2021, to this company, and you get it back, and what did it show?
It showed extremely high levels of selenium and thallium.
When you say extremely high levels, from what the court documents say, the probable cause, a high value is around 1,300 UG/kg. You had 62,789. So that's like 62 times, 63 times what a high value would be. Do you know, is that a fatal number?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's far beyond a fatal number. And
Their words were, "This is your smoking gun." That's what the
company
told us.
And from what this says, a lethal dose could be around 5,000. So again, that's like 10 times what a lethal dose could be. What else you said the other drug that they found was?
thallium.
Thallium. So what did you think when you got those results?
I can remember sitting in the car with my parents and just going over the test results, and I was just in complete denial at that point. I was in tears, and I said, "No, there's no way she would do this to me." I had just gone through so much with her, and seen what I thought was so much care and love for her husband and the father of her children, but I was very wrong. It was something completely different. So yeah.
Now, at that point, had you stopped eating what she was preparing you?
That is the point where I stopped eating. Yes, when we got the test results.
But you were telling me earlier that it was tricky because she was kind of the only one bringing you the food, and if you started to feel better, she would bring you more food. It was almost as if a way she wanted you to stay home and be sick.
Yeah. So, as you can imagine, I was excited to feel any sort of better, but I did notice that when I would start to feel better, or talk about, hey, I think I want to go to work today. Let me make you some food. Let me get you a drink. In fact, one night I remember I was getting up to use the restroom, and from a dead sleep, she sat straight up and, "Do you want a sandwich? Do you need a sandwich? Do you want a sandwich?" And I said, no, I'm good, and laid right back down and right back to sleep. But if I, when she would bring me food and drink, if I gave her the same response that I had been giving her, my stomach hurts, and she would sort of disappear and pay less attention to me, and that gave me the opportunity to dispose of the food so that I wouldn't raise her suspicion.
Did your kids ever get sick?
Not that I know of from her, but it's very hard to know what actually happened.
Yeah.
So I reported the crime to the CHUBBUCK police on February 16th. Courtney was arrested or taken in for questioning, then arrested on March 16th of 21. So for this month, I was tasked by the CHUBBUCK police to prove it. Basically, they didn't believe me.
So you did that with recordings and other things. Brian, I want to mention you did some research and found that this selenium is used typically on cattle.
That's correct.
Right.
It's a cattle supplement that's a veterinary prescription. You can't just go buy it at your local farm store. You have to have a prescription to get it.
And so how would Courtney have had access to that?
Her family's cattle ranchers, and in several of the recordings, she admitted to getting it out of her dad's fridge.
Okay, so you all are putting together your own investigation, doing your own detective work. having these recordings and tell me how that worked. How would you orchestrate that?
Well, it was really frustrating. In fact, we went to the CHUBBUCK Police Department, and it just seemed like they just wouldn't do anything. It was really frustrating, and maybe we thought we had plenty of evidence when we went in with the hair tests and all the suspicions and all the different things. They didn't feel that way, and in fact, we even went to the Bannock County Courthouse, and we were us three, me and Shelley and Jared. We were out in front of the prosecutor's office, and we were demanding to be able to have some help for this, just anything from anybody. We couldn't get anywhere. And they threatened to arrest us, and I'm willing to go to jail, but I didn't want to be tased. So we just kept working at it and working at it and working at it. And I would interview her, and we would have conversations, and we were just trying to figure things out. And that's when she started to open up, and she started to talk about what she did, and that she was, giving Jared selenium and thallium, and she had talked about where she was getting the selenium from, out of her dad's refrigerator, and she talked about her cousin that had passed away, and how he had given her the idea of doing it, and other family members had told her even where they could dispose of the body if they needed to, that they had a bone pile where they put their dead animals, and that was a place where they could dispose of the body and they would never find it.
And you got this all on tape?
All on tape.
How many recordings did you all have?
I recorded 2. I had 3 different interviews where, I don't know if interview is the right word.
It was conversations.
It was just conversations that the first one I didn't record, and this friend of mine who had been getting the help from, he said, well, you got to record it. You got to, and so, I mean, we'd never done this before. We'd never been poisoned before. So it was our first time doing this.
Yeah.
But that's when decided to record it, and that's where she admitted to doing it. And there was different ideas in the recordings where she said that she had, maybe bought it at Walmart or bought it here, but you can't just buy this stuff at Walmart. You can't. You have to. The amount that Jared had in his system, it had to come from an extremely high concentrate amount. And she actually, in the interview, tells us how much you would actually give a cow, and for how much that cow weighs versus a calf, and how many cc's. And the whole time, she was giving Jared the amount for a 1,200-pound steer that, a 250-pound guy.
Wow. So you take those recordings to the police. That's when they arrest her. The probable cause document says during the interview, Courtney confessed to having poisoned Jared with selenium starting sometime in February of 2020. She had gotten the idea of poisoning Jared from her now deceased cousin. She got it from the refrigerator, as you said, at her parents' place where her father kept cattle vaccinations. She stated she first became upset with you in February of 2020. It led to a nervous breakdown. She stated she believes she poisoned you multiple times and that it was administered in liquid form over your food or in your drinks, sometimes at mealtimes or in snacks in the night. She stated she never had any intention of killing you. She just wanted to keep you sick enough to keep you home so that she could care for you. She did this so that you wouldn't leave her or file for divorce. Then she turned over her her phone to the police along with the passcode, and they went through that to search it, and then along with your medical records and whatnot. So she said she doesn't want to kill you, but she wanted to leave you home, and she didn't want you to leave her. Had that been discussed?
So we went through a divorce. We divorced in 2018 and remarried in 2019. So I suppose it had been discussed, but I didn't feel like upon our reunification, I never felt like our relationship was at risk in that way.
Yeah. And again, another question that people might be asking Shelley and Amber is, okay, they might understand how she could poison you because she's of course giving you the food every day and you're too weak to go out and get food. But how does she get to the extended family members? I mean, What does she do? Is she bringing over lasagnas constantly or ice cream? I mean, how do you think she got to make you all so sick?
I don't think that she liked my mom. In fact, she wrote about it, about not liking my mom. And I do believe that she tried to kill my mom in September with a high dose. And
Same drug? Selenium?
Thallium.
Thallium.
I didn't have any selenium in my system. I just had
Jared is the only one.
220, and 2 is normal, but I had 220.
Not normal, but it's the least.
Zero is
Okay, so
normal.
0 is
And you
normal.
had 220.
In my system.
I don't know anything about it, but is that a fatal dose too? Could it be?
Definitely a fatal dose. In fact, I did some research and we found a couple of different cases where people that had passed away. There was a lady that had had 25 micrograms per kilogram in her system and she passed away. Then there was a man that had 70-something micrograms per kilogram in his system and he passed away. And Shelley had 220 plus.
So you've got these two people that both had fatal levels of medicine or drugs, I guess, that could kill you. Heavy metals, yeah. So, okay, so back to the question. You think that she tried to kill your mom in September, tried to kill your brother, and how did she get to your mom?
You know, it's hard to say exactly, but we always have a drink. We
Like a
always
soda
have
pop.
like a soda pop, Maverick mugs or whatever. And so I do believe that she got to her through her drink. I think that's how she can pinpoint exactly who she wanted to make sick or whatever, or poison or kill. But yeah, I think it was through her drink.
Do you think the same?
Definitely. There's a few instances where I do remember her bringing, and I think she called them fudge jumbles. They're like a blonde brownie with chocolate on the top, and I remember her bringing them to our house and telling me, oh, I made this special section for you. And at the time I thought maybe it had like extra chocolate or something in it, but looking back on it now, it's kind of weird. So
Very
yeah,
weird.
a couple of times she'd brought me food specifically like that, but
Why do you think you were spared, Brian?
You know, we got along really well, Courtney and I did, but I didn't eat very much of her food. And I don't know why. I don't know, call it a gut feeling or whatever, but I just never ate very much of her food.
So they arrest her. She makes this confession to the police. You all have the recordings. You hand it over. She's charged. She does time in jail. What happened then with your health?
So I started to get better. The day that I got the hair test results back, my doctors rushed me into a place called the West Clinic to receive what's called a chelation IV treatment. So that's some type of a binder that they run through your blood that pulls heavy metals and toxins out of your tissue, and then your body's able to flush it. So that was the first of a long road of those treatments in order to get me here, and I firmly believe that saved my life.
Could I add to that too?
Yes.
At that time, Shelley and I had watched a Dateline where someone had been poisoned with, was it thallium they had been poisoned? It was. And it was just right during that exact time, and they prescribed something called Prussian blue. It's a drug that actually comes from the Prussian blue paint. And there's only a couple of places a couple of pharmacies in the United States that you can get it from, and it's something that needs CDC approval because if the United States ever had a dirty bomb or something like that go off, something radioactive, they actually use this to pull radioactive material, heavy metals, thallium, things like that out of your system. And so we had our entire family, the doctor had prescribed this thallium blue for our entire family.
Wow. Your description of it sounds so, crazy. Who would want to take that? But I guess if you've been poisoned, you have to take it.
Exactly.
So I guess the bottom line is you started to get better.
Yes.
And you started to eat your own food or prepared food from other people. But here we are 2 years later. I mean, again, one of the horrible things about the legal system is it takes so long. And the charges have changed. So just talk about what's happened since then over the past 2 years.
Yeah, what a roller coaster. So, I mean, I thought that we were safe at that point. I thought, okay, they've got her. They're gonna protect us. They're gonna take care of us. So they charged her with a felony count of aggravated assault. When we went to court for that to be bound over into district court, the state didn't bring a toxology expert, so the judge dismissed it without prejudice, and the state refiled it under felony statute poisoning, which is altering or tampering with any food or drink with the intent to cause another person harm.
One count?
One count. Which the first time we met with the prosecutors, what about Mom? What about Amber? What about Hannah? What about the other people? And they assured us that once they got charges to stick on her for me, that they would then go back and charge for everyone else.
Because potentially you could have a charge on each victim. Mm-hmm. But that didn't happen.
No. So we also divorced, bifurcated divorce pending child custody. So also fighting that in the middle of this.
But you have temporary full custody now of the kids.
I have temporary full custody. When they arrested her, she spent about 3 weeks in jail, and then they let her out on an ankle monitor. When they dismissed and refiled, they removed the ankle monitor, and she's out with you guys, out wherever she is amongst the public, which by the way is extremely terrifying for me. This is a person that tried to take my life and my family's lives, and I have zero reason to think that she wouldn't do that again. So here we are. This is a person that tried to kill us, and they're now going to plea it down to 2 misdemeanor battery charges.
And she is not allowed to have contact with you or the kids
Right now.
until this gets resolved.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts, the fact that this is, where it's at? The two misdemeanor battery charges, the sentencing date is set for June 21st?
Yep.
So just in a few weeks. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of frustration with the whole family.
Yeah, absolutely. My thoughts are that this is absolutely insane, that we're here right now. We're even having to do this. Like the only thing that I care about is the safety of my 3 kids, and I'm terrified for their safety. Upon expressing my concern for their safety to the prosecutors, they told me that was irrelevant. They couldn't consider details of outside cases. They couldn't let that sway their judgment. I don't know how. I don't know how that can't be considered. Those kids mean the world to me, and they're the reason that I'm alive. They're the only reason I'm alive, and I'm here to protect them. And it is imperative that she doesn't, that they don't get turned back into her care. Their safety is absolutely in jeopardy if she's able to get her hands on him.
What do you all want to see?
Nate, the prosecutor's office, they have diary records of her writing in her diary that she talks about poisoning herself and the 3 kids, or driving off of a bridge. And our goal has always been to protect those kids at all costs. I feel like Jared now is in a pretty good situation, but to turn those kids back over to her, I can't even imagine. I mean, there's no part of our lives or no part of me that can see where that would be right to have an introduction there. And the sentence is light. It doesn't fit the crime by any means. How does someone? I guess I look at this and think that my wife and three of my 4 children were, someone tried to take their lives, and yet they're going to give her. If I walked up and spit in someone's face, that's the charge that they're giving her. It doesn't fit, and so we're frustrated. We're frustrated with the system. We're frustrated that, we hate to see. Last thing in the world I want this to be is to be another big case that we've had in our area. That's the last thing in the world. And at all costs, we have to protect these children.
Was it you who told me, Jared, you wanted it to be attempted murder?
Absolutely.
Charges?
Yeah. We've been told that it isn't attempted murder because they can't prove her intent. But I don't think that they can prove that wasn't her intent either. This was 100% an attempt on all of our lives. And this person is sick and evil, and she needs mental help. And our legal system is failing her and these children and this entire family, our community. They have the ability to make her get the mental help that she needs and protect not only my family, but our entire community. Where is she at now? This is a person that knowingly did this to all of us and admitted it. And she is out amongst all of us walking around like nothing happened.
Yeah. Shelley, what about you? What do you hope happens here? What do you think should happen?
I want to say that that I loved Courtney. I wanted to help her, and I don't know why she did what she did, but the only way that I can think of that it can get better is for her to get help and to have a consequence, some sort of consequence to her choices. And I really just want my grandkids to be safe. I love them, and I'm scared everywhere we go. I can't drive through Idaho Falls without having extreme anxiety. I watch everywhere I go. Like, are they gonna, in my mind, it's a nonstop thought, is she gonna sneak up and get them? Are they, spying on us? Are they, we moved because she knew everything about our home, and that terrified me. She knew our codes and our where we kept our keys, and you can move all that, but it was just too hard. It was too scary.
So you had to move.
Yeah.
And again, for those asking about the motive here, like life insurance, your mind immediately goes to that. Was there a financial motive? But you don't. You're saying that you didn't really have a big policy as far as life insurance, but there could have been another financial benefit.
Yeah, so my family owns the Ashley Home Store in Pocatello and Twin Falls. There's also government subsidies that I believe that she was aware of. With a deceased spouse, I believe you can receive up to like $3,300 a month per kid.
But it's not like you don't think she did this to get your life insurance, $1 million policy or something.
No, I didn't have one. So
we took out a small life insurance policy on all of our kids when they were babies. Sure. It's $15,000 just to cover a funeral.
Yeah. What about you, Amber? How do you want this to end?
For months and months, I watched Jared and experienced, things myself too, and my mom. But especially them. I watched them be tortured tortured for months and months and months, and it didn't end there. These IV treatments, Jared was going in probably at least 3 times a week. And, the recovery for my mom and for him, I mean, it's still happening. He's still battling this. So for me, watching everything that my family went through and my immediate family, I have 2 kids. I have a husband, going through things myself, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, like those are all very real. And, I would like to see justice. What she's getting now, like my dad said, you can get it walking down the street and spit on someone. Like, that doesn't seem right for what she has put my family through.
Is there anything you guys want to add?
We feel really blessed. We know that we've been watched over, and we're grateful as grandparents. We're grateful that we're not in the Woodcocks, in their situation, and for what they had to deal with. But in our minds, we've seen what's happened and seen what our family's been through, and we could be, and we could still be, if someone doesn't do something, if the right thing isn't done.
Anything you want to add, Jared?
Yeah, this is sort of a Hail Mary for us. So I would like to add, please stand with us. Please help us protect my children. Please come support us. Be at the Bannock County Courthouse on June 21st at 9 a.m. Anything and everything that someone is willing to do to help get attention around this, to help protect the lives of these 3 kids, please.
Well, thank you all. We're glad you're here and that we're not covering another horrible case, as you said. And we wish you all the best, and we'll continue to stay on top of it. We'll be there on June 21st when the court hearing is currently scheduled, and if it gets delayed or changed. Jared, Amber, Shelley, and Brian, thank you very much for chatting with us.